That day, an elderly man with nothing but part-time job experience visited our rundown factory. "Would you be willing to hire me for a daily wage of $1?" Hearing his words, I knew something was off and decided to ask about his situation. "Understood. I'll hire you with room and board included for a daily wage of $100. After listening to his story, I couldn't bring myself to turn him away and made the decision to take him in. However, about 3 days after I started teaching him the job, I arrived at the office to find nearly 100 missed calls. What? What is with all these calls? Never in my wildest dreams did I expect this elderly man to cause such a commotion in just a few days. My name is Edward, and I'm 33 years old. I run a small-town furniture factory. Originally, my father was the factory manager. However, a few months ago, he was hospitalized due to illness, and I was temporarily put in charge. Besides my father and me, there are 6 other employees at the factory. We have one office clerk, 4 craftsmen who build furniture, and a caretaker who also serves as the cook for the employees living in our dormitory. It's a small but tightly knit operation. I'm still not even a fully skilled craftsman myself, and to make matters worse, that rival store had to open up right across the street. I sat in my office chair, looking out the window at the national furniture chain store that had set up shop just across the road. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the area manager of that store turned out to be him. A few days ago, the area manager of that store came by to introduce himself. To my surprise, he was someone I knew. "Hey. I was shocked when I heard you're the factory manager here. I never thought a rundown place like this was still standing. Christopher. You're the one in charge of that store?" "I'm an area manager. You wouldn't understand, but I'm actually a pretty big deal now." I had received a call in advance informing me that a representative would be coming to introduce themselves. But I never expected it to be someone I knew. This man, Christopher, was my high school classmate. Even back then, he always had a habit of picking fights with me, and I never had a good impression of him. To make things worse, he was the type of person who looked down on anyone he deemed beneath him. So, this area manager has gone out of his way to grace our humble, rundown factory with his presence. I appreciate it. Looking forward to working together. Heh, you're as dull as ever. Well, rather than an introduction, I'm actually here with a request. A request? For me? His unexpected words made me raise an eyebrow. Christopher smirked as he looked around my factory with a sneering expression. "Yeah. You see, it's embarrassing for our store's customers to have to look at this rundown dump. So, do us all a favor and shut it down. Would you?" "What?" I was speechless at his audacity. Sure, our factory was old and worn out, and compared to his store, it might seem shabby. But to tell me to shut it down just because it was an eyesore? That was beyond insulting. Suppressing the anger bubbling inside me, I forced a smile and spoke. "No. If our factory being in your customer's line of sight bothers you so much, why don't you relocate your store instead? You were the ones who moved in after all." "Oh. But if you're willing to cover all the costs for relocating and rebuilding my factory out of your own pocket, I might consider it." Christopher clearly hadn't expected me to push back. His face went blank for a moment before twisting in annoyance. But then, as if regaining his composure, he smirked and shook his head dramatically. "Ah, what a shame. If you had agreed, I could have given you a job at our company. Don't come crying to me when you regret this." And with that, Christopher left the office. Excuse me. Yes, welcome. Are you here to purchase furniture?" One day, as I was working on a table in the factory, a small elderly man called out to me from the entrance. Our factory specializes in furniture manufacturing and primarily sells to businesses. However, we also offer retail sales to the general public, accepting orders for both standard products and custom-made pieces. Because of this, Local customers sometimes visit the factory directly. Thinking that this elderly man was also a customer, I approached him to guide him to the retail section. But suddenly, he bowed deeply. Sir? What's the matter? I hurriedly ran over and helped him straighten up. The elderly man looked up at me, his face worn and weary, before finally speaking. Please hire me. I don't mind working for just $1 a day. $1. I was already surprised that he was looking for a job, but a daily wage of $1? That would be outright exploitation. Well, the thing is, we're not really short on staff at the moment. As you can see, it's just me right now, but my father, who's currently absent. And a small team, including our office clerk, are enough to keep things running smoothly. Our employees work irregular schedules, some only work short shifts while others come in just 2 or 3 days a week. Depending on the time of day, I sometimes end up being the only one here. Please, I'm begging you. Ugh, this is tough. Well, since you came all this way, why don't we sit down and have some tea while we talk? I led the elderly man to the office to hear him out. I hadn't intended to hire him, but something about his desperate demeanor told me there was more to his story. Here you go. Thank you very much. I brewed some tea and brought it over. The elderly man carefully cradled the teacup in his hands, took a small sip, let out a breath, and then began to explain his situation. My name is Robert. I'm 66 years old this year. Oh, I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I'm Edward, the manager of this factory. I'm 33, so exactly half your age. I mentioned my age, hoping to put Robert at ease. He gave a faint smile in response. I see. Thinking about it that way, it's as if you were born when I was your age. I'm sorry for barging in on you so suddenly when you must be busy. Not at all. But what exactly is going on? A daily wage of $1? You wouldn't even be able to afford a meal with that. I'm just grateful for the chance to work. I can't afford to have any expectations when it comes to wages. I used to run my own business. But aside from that, I've only ever worked part-time jobs. I've never even touched a computer or used Excel before. It's true that in today's world, having basic computer skills is often necessary, even for part-time jobs or office work. I see. You mentioned you ran your own business. If you don't mind me asking, what kind of work did you do? I was a temple carpenter, specializing in temple construction and restoration. But nowadays, the demand for that kind of craftsmanship has declined. My income has dropped, and I was forced out of my home due to its deteriorating condition. Now, I've been moving from hotel to hotel, trying to find work, but with only part-time job experience, no one wants to hire me. A temple carpenter. My father used to be one too. Oh. Is that so? Then, does that mean you're aspiring to become one as well? When I was a kid, I dreamed of it. But I realized temple carpentry isn't just about construction. It requires a deep understanding of how wood interacts, precise calculations, and even knowledge of physics and history. As a child, I admired my father and once told him I wanted to follow in his footsteps. But as I grew older and learned more about the field, I realized just how much knowledge and skill were required. Not just architectural expertise but the ability to draft highly detailed blueprints. The sheer complexity of it all made me hesitant. That's true. If even a slight miscalculation is made, the whole structure could collapse. Though, after years of experience, some things just become second nature. Exactly. But working with furniture, creating pieces that people will use every day, has turned out to be really fulfilling for me. That said, my father and I had been discussing whether we could apply temple carpentry techniques to furniture design. We were hoping to explore that idea more concretely. Applying temple carpentry techniques to furniture. That sounds fascinating. If you don't mind me asking, what's your father's name? Knowing that Robert was familiar with temple carpentry, I found myself leaning forward, eagerly engaging in the conversation. However, he didn't seem to mind at all and listened attentively. He even seemed interested in my father, so without hesitation, I told him his name. His name is Michael. He's 54 now, and I think he worked as a temple carpenter until I was a child, so that would have been about 20 years ago. Michael. I see. And is he working here with you now? You mentioned earlier that he wasn't present today. Robert slightly widened his eyes as he repeated my father's name, then glanced around the factory as if deep in thought before asking. Actually, last month, he suffered a stroke and was hospitalized. The surgery was successful, but he hasn't regained consciousness yet. That's why I'm managing the factory for now. I see. That must be very difficult for you. I sincerely hope he makes a full recovery. Robert's words were the kind of considerate remarks people usually offer in such situations. But his expression conveyed genuine concern for my father. His tone was like that of an old friend offering support, and it filled me with a quiet warmth. Thank you. I'm sure my father would appreciate that. Now, about the job. I'm sorry, but I can't hire you for a daily wage of $1. Straightening my posture, I looked Robert in the eye and got to the point. I had never planned on hiring him. At least, not until I heard his story. I see. No, I understand. I'm sorry for making such an unreasonable request. Well, in that case, how about this, room and board included with a daily wage of $100? Ha! Robert, who had looked disappointed and cast his eyes downward, suddenly lifted his head in surprise, his mouth slightly open. Seeing his reaction, I couldn't help but chuckle. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. But really, hiring someone with your level of experience in temple carpentry for $1 a day? That would definitely get me sued. I can't afford to go any higher, but if you're willing, I'd love to have you here. To be honest, I was also hoping he could share some insights on incorporating temple carpentry techniques into furniture. But that was a conversation for another time. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this opportunity. Robert bowed deeply, expressing his gratitude. I pretended not to notice the tears welling up in the corners of his eyes. Does this look about right? Yes. As expected, with your experience as a temple carpenter, you have a natural talent for furniture making. You're far from a beginner. And your craftsmanship is at an expert level. The next day, I began teaching Robert how to make furniture. His main role would be in production at the factory, and to my surprise, he picked things up incredibly fast. So much so that it felt like explaining one thing to him led him to understand 10 more on his own. Despite my initial concerns about his age and lack of formal experience outside carpentry and part-time jobs, it was clear that he would have no trouble adjusting. Robert, make sure you take breaks, okay? Here, have some tea. When I went on my break, I found Robert diligently shaping a table. I couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. He reminded me so much of my father. I quietly approached him and handed him a cold cup of tea, encouraging him to take a rest. Oh, thank you. Sorry, once I start working, I get carried away. Now I understand what you meant when you said furniture making was fun. There's something different about crafting furniture, knowing that someone will actually use it, compared to building a house. His face lit up as he spoke, clearly enjoying himself. When I introduced him to the dormitory, the other employees, likely intrigued by his background as a temple carpenter, welcomed him warmly. From what I heard, they stayed up late chatting last night. I think this job suits me well. And everyone here has been so kind to an elderly man like me. I'm really grateful to be working here. I'm glad to hear that. We're counting on your skills, so please take care of yourself and don't overwork. Yes, thank you. Oh, by the way, would it be alright if I made a few small items over the weekend? Just using scrap wood, of course. Of course, that's fine. While we mainly take custom orders, we also sell unique pieces crafted by our craftsmen to the local community. Feel free to use any materials you'd like, though let me know if you need anything from the reserve stock for larger or special order items. Also, make sure to take proper breaks, alright? I handed him a materials list and a pricing guide for the items we typically sell. As long as the materials were of the same quality and quantity, we had a fixed price system for selling the pieces, except in special cases. I just find this work so enjoyable, so I can't seem to sit still. But don't worry, I'll be sure to rest properly. Feeling reassured by his response, I had no way of predicting the chaos that Robert was about to unleash. 3 days had passed since I hired Robert, and the weekend arrived. Since our factory was closed on weekends, I spent my time visiting my father in the hospital and taking care of personal matters. The employees living in the dormitory spent their time in various ways, some staying in their rooms while others went out. Ah, Edward, just in time. The voicemail is completely full. Good morning. Wait, what do you mean, completely full? When I arrived at the office on Monday morning, our office clerk greeted me with a troubled expression. Apparently, nearly 100 voicemails had been left over the weekend, all of them furniture orders. Furniture orders? Sure, we get phone orders sometimes, but why the sudden surge? We usually receive only a few orders per week, with some days having none at all, so suddenly getting 100 orders was completely unheard of. Good morning. Is something the matter? Ah, good morning, Robert. It seems we received nearly 100 furniture orders over the weekend, but we have no idea why. Oh, is that so? That's wonderful. I'm glad my efforts paid off. His words left me stunned. Wait, do you know something about this? Yes. Over the weekend, I had some free time, so I made a few pieces of furniture. Oh, right. You did mention that. I recalled our conversation before the weekend and nodded. Yes, and I was having such a good time that I ended up making quite a few pieces. Then, a woman happened to stop by and saw them. Before I knew it, more and more people started gathering. What? The pieces I made sold out almost immediately, but the ladies who had gathered were quite persistent. So, I told them that if they were interested, we could take custom orders, which led to this flood of calls. Exactly. Here, this is the total sales amount from the weekend. I also took photos of the items I made, so you can review them. I looked at the sales report and was taken aback by the staggering amount. As I flipped through the photos, I could see the masterful craftsmanship behind each piece. It was evident just how meticulous Robert had been in his work. Among the voicemails were also several thank you messages from customers who had purchased his pieces. It was clear that Robert's work had been an overwhelming success. Robert, who exactly are you? I'm nothing special. As I mentioned, I used to run my own business, but now I'm just an old carpenter. However, I actually worked alongside your father back in our temple carpentry days. What? I couldn't help but raise my voice in shock at his unexpected revelation. Hearing the commotion, the office clerk and a few craftsmen who had already started their shifts gathered around, curious about what was happening. Even after your father left Temple Carpentry and started this factory, we kept in touch, updating each other on our lives. But when I had to close my shop, things got hectic, and I never got around to contacting him. Wait. Are you my father's mentor? He used to talk about his temple carpentry days when he was drinking, how he was rigorously trained, especially in how to handle materials and tools. At my words, the craftsmen around us started murmuring in surprise. Wait. You mean that mentor? The infamous Demon Master? The one who would hit you the second you used the wrong tool? No way. That guy actually existed? The legendary Demon Carpenter. But now that I think about it, Robert's craftsmanship is incredibly precise. Demon. Oh, I'm sorry. My father would sometimes let it slip after a few drinks. But he always spoke of you with respect, saying he could never surpass you. Hearing the craftsman's words, Robert muttered something in a low voice, and I quickly stepped in to smooth things over. The craftsman, realizing his mistake, hurriedly covered his mouth. Hey, it's fine. He called me a demon to my face all the time. It's true. Though I was the one who drilled the fundamentals of temple carpentry into your father. So it really was you. Why didn't you say anything earlier? I wasn't trying to hide it. But you decided to hire me without knowing I had any connection to your father. That made me so happy that I just forgot to mention it. Besides, if you had known your father called me a demon, you might have kicked me out after hiring me, no? He grinned mischievously, and I couldn't help but laugh along with the other craftsmen. Later, Robert told me that when he first heard my name, he had a hunch that I might be Michael's son. He only became certain when I mentioned my father's name. Robert, if you don't mind, would you teach me your techniques? I know temple carpentry and furniture making are different in some ways. But I still have so much to learn. I feel ashamed that I can barely keep this factory running, despite all my father's efforts. I want to create furniture that truly makes people happy. Are you sure? Your father probably told you that I can be very strict. I'm ready for that. Also, please don't feel like you need to speak so formally with me. Ha ha. That's a relief. I was never good at speaking formally. I'll take you up on that. Well then. Let's aim to surprise Michael with how much you've improved by the time he wakes up. Yes. Thank you. From that point on, I spent my working hours fully dedicated to learning from Robert, absorbing his techniques. Through trial and error, I worked on incorporating temple carpentry knowledge and skills into furniture making. Robert, about this joint here. The pressure will apply here, so you should adjust the angle slightly. I see. It wasn't just me. Soon, the other craftsmen also started learning from Robert. Each of them took pride in their work, but that didn't stop them from seeking out his expertise. Since he had been my father's mentor, they had no hesitation in learning from him as well. As we integrated his teachings into our work, our furniture sales steadily grew. One day, while a customer was browsing our showroom, they suddenly asked, "Edward, is your factory going to be part of the upcoming furniture exhibition?" Furniture exhibition? Yes. A lot of furniture companies are participating, and the store across the street is, too. I saw a flyer at their entrance. They handed me the flyer, which had no special participation requirements. It looked like we were still within the application deadline. Oh, an industry-wide exhibition. There are not just regular customers but industry professionals, and even wealthy buyers are expected to attend. I thought your factory should participate. The customer handed me the flyer before leaving. Robert and I exchanged glances, then both looked back at the flyer. If we can make an impression at this event, we could expand our business even further. Even if other companies showcase amazing pieces and our furniture doesn't stand out, it would still be a valuable learning experience. I don't see any real downside to joining. After discussing it with the other employees, I made the decision to participate. From that day on, Robert and I started brainstorming what kind of furniture we should showcase. After much trial and error, we decided to craft a kitchen cabinet infused with temple carpentry techniques. It is a common household item, but as part of the interior, it plays a significant role in shaping the overall impression of the kitchen. The wooden parts will be constructed using temple carpentry techniques, but I also want to put some thought into the glass doors. Since we're at it, how about adding some intricate carvings to the frame? To allow Robert and me to focus on crafting the piece, the other craftsmen took on all the regular orders. Grateful for their cooperation, Robert and I worked tirelessly, going back and forth over every detail. One day, as we took a break and drank tea near the factory entrance, Christopher approached with a sour expression. I quickly informed Robert that Christopher was the manager of the furniture chain store across the street and also an old classmate of mine. I heard you're entering the exhibition. You really don't know your place, do you? Yeah, and it's not like I need your permission. Whether we participate or not is our decision. As soon as I responded, Christopher's face twisted with anger, and he pointed at me, raising his voice. Just seeing you around pisses me off. Stay out of the exhibition. If you show up, I'll make sure you regret it. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped off loudly, and I watched him leave with a shallow sigh. Seriously, can't he just leave me alone for once? He seems to have quite the grudge against you. A person that tense could never craft good furniture. But are you sure everything's fine? He looked like he was up to no good. I already submitted our application, and there's no way I'm backing out now after hearing him say that. More importantly, I can't let this opportunity to showcase the cabinet Robert and I made go to waste. The day before the exhibition, we successfully transported our completed cabinet to the venue. Until the exhibition opened, the venue was restricted to authorized personnel only, and the management was responsible for securely storing all exhibits. Then, the big day arrived. I entered the venue after being seen off by Robert and the other employees. As I made my way toward our display area, I noticed several staff members moving around in a hurry. Did something happen? Feeling a sense of unease, I continued toward our section. When I arrived, I saw a few event staff and some craftsmen gathered around. Excuse me. Is something wrong with our piece? What? What on earth? The upper part of the cabinet had been smashed, as if struck by an axe or some heavy tool. Broken glass from the shattered doors was scattered across the floor. We sincerely apologize. We discovered it in this condition when we arrived this morning. The storage area was securely locked, but it seems someone forcibly broke the lock. We're currently reviewing the security footage. The event staff's explanation barely registered. The thought of who could have done this filled my mind, but if I didn't fix it, it would be an insult to Robert, who had worked so hard alongside me. I also noticed attendees already peering in from the entrance, waiting for the exhibition to open. If I withdrew now, the only impression left would be that my furniture was destroyed. That would be unacceptable. I understand. Please continue your investigation. We trusted the venue's security when we brought our piece here, so this is extremely disappointing. However, since we don't have time to waste, may I repair it here? Fortunately, each exhibitor had a generous amount of space allocated. Plus, I had brought some basic tools just in case. Wait. Here? Of course, you're free to, but the damage is quite severe. Can it even be fixed? I won't be able to restore it to its original state, but this piece was built using temple carpentry techniques. That means no nails or screws. Everything is fitted together. Since there's no adhesive, I can dismantle and rebuild it. I explained while placing the materials down and beginning to disassemble the damaged joints. Although I couldn't rebuild the cabinet to its full height, I transformed it into a low chest, about 1/3 of its original size. Fortunately, the intricate carvings Robert and I had worked on were intact. I removed the shattered glass and repurposed the carved frames as decorative panels. That's incredible. You rebuilt it so quickly. Somehow, I made it in time. Could you please dispose of the broken parts? Of course. As the exhibition began, a wave of visitors flooded in. Among them were families, groups of friends, industry professionals, and even what appeared to be high-profile clients. I barely had time to process my accomplishment of rebuilding the piece before shifting into customer service mode. This low chest is amazing. They say it's built using temple carpentry techniques without any metal fittings. Visitors carefully examined the piece I had just reconstructed. At this exhibition, direct sales weren't allowed, so everything was displayed as a sample with orders taken for future production. Wow, temple carpentry. That's the method used to construct shrines and temples, right? Wait, isn't this the cabinet that was destroyed earlier? How did they remake it this quickly? The temple carpentry techniques and the fact that I had quickly rebuilt the piece became a major talking point, leading to a significant number of orders. One by one, I thanked each customer and handed out flyers promoting direct sales at our factory. And with that, the exhibition came to a successful close. However, just as I was about to leave, I was called into the event office. The organizers had identified the person responsible for destroying my furniture. Yes, the responsible party has been identified as a representative from this company. We are currently questioning him in a separate room. Would you like to file a police report? The person who had destroyed our exhibition piece was none other than my former classmate, Christopher. I finally understood what he had meant before the exhibition, but the sheer audacity of his actions filled me with rage. However, if I filed a report, it would cast a shadow over the low chest Robert had built and I had repaired. The customers had loved it, and I didn't want to taint its success. No. Since we were able to recover from this, I won't be filing a report. However, letting this slide completely could affect future exhibitions. Could you at least issue a formal warning from the organizers? Of course. It is absolutely unacceptable for a craftsman to destroy another's work out of spite. We will ensure stricter security measures to prevent such incidents in the future. Thank you. I appreciate it. A few days later, a formal letter of apology arrived from Christopher's company. It also briefly stated that Christopher had been fired. The ending was almost too anticlimactic. Somehow, word got out on social media that an employee from that company was responsible for the incident. As the news spread, their sales plummeted. And a few months later, the store across the street was forced to shut down and withdraw from the area. You actually managed to turn that cabinet into this low chest. Your skills might surpass Michael's. You're not half-trained anymore. You're fully capable. After returning to the factory with the exhibition furniture, Robert and the employees welcomed me back. As I explained the incident at the venue, Robert praised me, while the employees loudly voiced their anger toward Christopher. That guy was your classmate, Edward? What a bastard! Edward and Robert put so much effort into that piece. The low chest is wonderful, but that cabinet would have been a hit too. As I reassured my employees, I couldn't help but smile, feeling genuinely happy. Ha ha. Sorry for making you all worry. But thanks to the exhibition, we got tons of orders. It looks like we'll be even busier. So I'm counting on all of you. The next day, customers who had visited the exhibition started coming to the factory, and phone inquiries flooded in. Robert even started helping answer calls during his breaks. At this rate, I was worried we'd turn into a sweatshop with no breaks. Maybe it's time to hire another office clerk. Just as I was considering this, the office clerk called out to me. Edward, there's a call from the hospital. It's about your father. What? Thanks, I'll take it. A call from the hospital. Did something happen to my father? Pushing down my anxiety, I answered the phone. This is Edward speaking. Yes. What? My father, he's awake? I understand. I'll be there right away. Hearing my conversation, the expressions of the office clerk, the other employees, and Robert changed from concern to relief. That call just now. My father woke up. He's fully conscious and able to speak. He'll need time to regain his strength and go through rehabilitation. But they said there's no longer any danger. At my words, the entire office erupted in excitement. Without wasting a moment, I took Robert with me to the hospital. Dad. Ah, Edward. I must have worried you for a long time. How's the factory? When we arrived at his hospital room, I had Robert wait outside for a moment while I entered first. My father looked frail, but his eyes still held the sharpness of the factory manager he once was. I've been managing somehow. In fact, I'm thinking of hiring more employees and even expanding the factory a little. What? Expanding the factory? But isn't the current team enough? Did someone quit? Hearing my words, my father looked bewildered, then furrowed his brows with concern. No, that's not it. We've just been really busy. Actually, we had a former temple carpenter join us. And he's been teaching me and the others new techniques. Thanks to that, our furniture sales have skyrocketed. A temple carpenter? Are you sure he's the real deal? There are plenty of frauds who claim to be experts. Unaware of the temple carpenter's true identity, my father openly expressed his skepticism and questioned me. Perhaps, as a former temple carpenter himself, he didn't like the idea of me and the other craftsmen learning from someone else. Far from a fraud. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been able to keep the factory running while you were gone. Of course. The team's support was invaluable too, but he taught me so much. Ugh. Edward, didn't you say you wanted to learn the techniques I used and apply them to furniture making? And now you're just trusting some random so-called temple carpenter? Well, actually, I think his techniques are the same as yours. Are you that worried about him? Of course I am. Not just because of you, you said the other craftsmen trust him too? It seemed like his feelings were half worry and half jealousy. I was thrilled that my father had woken up, and I also wanted to surprise him, but if I teased him too much, I might end up worsening his condition. So, what do you think about that, Robert? How sad. I never thought my very first apprentice would call me a fraud. What? Why is the demon here? You call him demon, no, Dad. Realizing what he had just let slip, my father quickly covered his mouth. Ahem. What I meant was, why is Robert here? Well, I happened to cross paths with Edward, and he hired me. Since I had the opportunity, I took him in as my apprentice. I must say, his learning speed is faster than yours ever was. Of course it is. He's my son, after all. Before I could feel too awkward being talked about like that, I forcefully brought the conversation back on track. So, as Robert was working at our factory, I eventually found out he was your mentor. That's when I asked him to teach me his techniques. I see. That explains why his style is similar to mine. After all, we had the same teacher. You really worked hard, didn't you, Edward? I'm sorry for leaving everything on your shoulders for so long. It's okay, Dad. I'm just glad you're awake. I heard you'll need rehab for a while, but depending on your progress, you might be able to leave the hospital sooner than expected. When you're back, I want you to check out my furniture. I'd love to. While you're at it, bring me some small pieces of wood I can work on for rehab. My hands must be getting rusty. Dad, rehab is supposed to be for daily activities, not carpentry. Please, just focus on resting. Working on small pieces should be fine. If you don't bring him anything, he might start wandering the hospital fixing shelves instead. Oh no. I could easily picture it happening, and I instinctively put my hand to my forehead. I should probably check with the doctor about this. A few months later, after completing his rehab, my father returned to the factory, bringing even more momentum to our growing business. With stable orders coming in, we sat down with both my father and Robert to discuss expanding the workforce and rebuilding the factory. Well, things are running smoothly for now, so we could wait until next month to start hiring. Yeah, that sounds good. I wonder how many positions we should open. A few days later, we received an inquiry about an interview. Someone wanted to feature us as unique furniture craftsmen who fully incorporated temple carpentry techniques. Then, following the media coverage, our orders skyrocketed, and 1 month later, we scrambled to hire more workers immediately. It seemed that the future of this factory was far brighter than I had ever imagined.